Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Seen Beyond and Through with Monty. Right before you is 57-year-old actress Molly Shannon. Now, Molly Shannon, who was on Saturday Night Live for many years, is making news now. And she's making news because she's coming out with a memoir titled Hello, Molly. And in this memoir, Miss Molly Shannon reveals that the late actor Gary Coleman once sexually harassed her in a hotel room. Now, you can take that with a grain of salt. But before I go on with the story, I want you to hear Molly's account as to what happened.
Going back to when you were trying to get an agent and you finally get an agent and you're excited because you had Gary Coleman's agent or something.
Yeah,
and
Mark Randall, yeah.
You said in the book, the agent says, you want to meet Gary Coleman? And you're like, fuck yeah, sure. Why not? I want to meet anyone who has a career. And Gary Coleman was one of the biggest stars in the world,
Oh,
you know.
yes.
And you go to the meeting, and he's coming on to you, and he invites you up to his hotel room, his beautiful penthouse hotel room, because he's Gary Coleman, he has a lot of money, and you're not even thinking that he's interested in you sexually.
And I was a virgin, so I wasn't even thinking about that.
Right. So you were like, isn't this nice? Gary Coleman wants me to come up to his room. You were completely naive about it, right?
Oh, yeah. He held my hand, and I was like, he's so cute. And he had a suit on, and he told me that he told me I reminded him of Kimberly from Different Strokes, and I was like, yes! Oh, my God, if I could only be on Different Strokes, you know?
Right.
Yeah. And Mark came up with us, too, and they had the presidential suite. And then we went into the room, and then Mark disappeared.
Oh, they had a whole move. Mark disappears from the room, leaves you alone with Gary Coleman. That's so dark. It is such a dark story.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there on the bed with him, right? And
I think he was like, sit down. Like, it was very sweet. Like, so, and then he's like, could you like tickling me a little and this and that? And I was like, stop. You know, like I was trying to be polite and stuff. I'm a polite Catholic girl and a virgin. So I'm not even I'm naive about anything about that.
But Gary Coleman started to get really aggressive with you, and you say he grabbed your ankles and started holding onto your ankles and then was bouncing on the bed trying to land on top of you.
Yes.
And I can't even imagine that story. I mean,
he
that's
was relentless. I was like, then he was like trying to kiss me and get on top of me. I was like, no, Gary, stop. So I push him off. Then I would get off the bed. Then he would bounce on the bed, jump, and wrap himself around me. Then I would like fling him off. And then he would...
fling him off.
Yeah. And then he got on top of me and was trying to, you know, I was like, Gary, stop. But I guess because of his size, I didn't feel physically threatened. But then, I finally would. It was going on and on, repeating. I would throw him off. He would get back on, throw him off, and his dialysis machine was in the room. And then finally, I throw him off. I was like, then I'm really getting out of breath because it was like athletic and aerobic. It was really...
And he was, about 4 feet tall, and he probably weighed, 50 pounds, 60, I don't know, 75 pounds. So, I mean, you're throwing around 75 pounds. It's hard. I mean, it's difficult.
So then I finally get him off, and then I go to the bathroom, and then he grabs onto my leg, and I was like, I like kick him off like that. Yeah. And then I go lock myself in the bathroom like this, and then he sticks his hands under the door, and he's like, I can see you.
Oh my. Like, so I love the quote in your book. You go, I can see you, silly Billy.
Silly Billy,
Which, it sounds like a cartoon, actually. But so how did you get out of the room? When you left the bathroom, did you just, run out the door?
I just kind of sprinted out. I think I was probably very polite. And then I saw Mark Randall, and I was like, you got to watch that client of yours. So I wish I could have stood up for myself more. But I think... I didn't. That's all I said.
But really, it's not funny. I mean, the agent leaving the room and leaving you alone, the whole thing is just so fucked up, and it's also sad.
Yeah.
Okay, so you heard that. It sounded very strange, very bizarre, almost like something like a gremlin who's grabbing onto you, holding on to you. You're trying to fend off. She's laughing all the way through. Not to say that she wasn't sexually harassed. I mean, I'm sure that people respond and act in different ways. But here's my problem with this. This happened 30 years ago. If she's saying the late 1980s, let's just give it as late as we can go, 1989. And it's 2022 right now. So this would have been like 30 years ago. And people's recollection of things and events can get very skewed, very twisted, to the point where it's not actually what happened. Now, that's not the biggest problem that I have with this particular story. The biggest problem that I have with this particular story is that Gary Coleman is not here to defend himself. Basically, she put this in her book. She's on a tour now promoting that book, wanting people to believe her side of the story or her recollection of events that happened 30 years later. Now, here's the thing. At least with the accusers of Bill Cosby, I have a lot of respect for them. I'm going to tell you the reason why. Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, people who accused Steven Seagal, and the woman who accused Donald Trump. The reason being is because they are all still alive. They can defend themselves. I think it takes a brave individual to accuse a man or a woman or anyone who is still walking the earth. That's a level playing field because they can respond back. However, a dead man, you can twist the story around any which way you want it. I mean, you can over exaggerate. People do things like that when they're writing a book. They do that for sensationalism, to sell more copies. And it's really a shame that she chose to wait 30 plus years to give her side of the story as to what happened. And if, like she claims, that the agent left the room, the only one who would know is her and Gary. And I'm just not buying her story. It seems just very outlandish, just out there. It seems ridiculous. It just seems very contrived. It just seems to me that this is someone who put something in there for sensationalistic reasons. And we know that controversy does sell. We know that a lot of women and men are jumping on the Me Too bandwagon. Now, Hollywood is full of sexual harassment. That's a given. That's a fact. But I wish that people would be more respectful and be more courageous to tell these stories while the individual is still alive. If it's such a fact and so truthful, then give them a chance to respond. Do not wait until 30 years later, after they're dead and gone from this earth, where they can't speak up for themselves. So Molly Shannon, bye girl. And ladies and gentlemen, that was another edition of Seeing Beyond and Through with Monty. And I will see you all beyond and through.